He came when the pride was at its weakest, and set his sights on the most vulnerable lives within it. Derek, a scarred and exiled male, knew that by destroying the cubs he could seize total control. But in the face of fear, one young lioness rose, and with the pride behind her, everything changed. But wait until you see the shocking twist that turned this brutal standoff into a triumph of justice. The first light of dawn stretched across the Tanzanian plains, brushing the tall grass with gold. The savanna stirred gently, birds called, insects hummed, but beneath the surface calm, something darker brewed. Grace, a young lioness just 3 years old, stood alert beneath the acacia trees. Her two cubs, barely old enough to walk more than a few feet, nestled close to her belly. She had barely begun grooming the smaller one when a low, guttural growl rolled across the wind. It wasn't the call of prey. It was a warning, and it belonged to Derek. Derek wasn't just another male lion. He was a rogue, cast out from his previous pride, hardened by isolation, and driven by a singular instinct to claim new territory at any cost. His face bore the marks of old fights, and his eyes held something colder than hunger, calculation. For weeks, he'd been a shadow on the horizon, circling the pride's boundary, studying, waiting. He'd chosen this morning for one reason: Elijah. Elijah was the pride's dominant male, strong, experienced, but not invincible. Days ago, a confrontation with a buffalo had left him badly injured. Limping, weakened, he was no longer the immovable force that had protected them for years, and Derek knew it. Without warning, Derek crossed into the heart of the pride's land. His approach was direct, fast, aggressive, unapologetic. Lionesses scattered at first, unsure whether to flee or defend. Elijah rose from the shadows, limping, baring his teeth, but his body betrayed him. One step forward, and he staggered. Derek didn't even flinch. The attack wasn't random, it was targeted. He headed straight for the cubs. Grace's heart slammed against her ribs. She turned sharply, crouched low, and let out a snarl that seemed too fierce for her size. Then, as Derek lunged toward her cubs, she leapt into his path. Anger. The camera jolts slightly. The impact is violent, but brief. Derek strikes her midair, and Grace crashes to the ground, dust rising as she slides through the dry earth. The blow opens of her flank. Still, she tries to rise. The other lionesses look on. Tension ripples through them, like a silent current. They know what's at stake. If Derek succeeds, if he eliminates the cubs, the lionesses will be forced back into heat, ready to bear his offspring. That's the cruel truth of survival here. Dominance isn't earned through loyalty, but through fear, force, and control. And Derek, he isn't here by accident. This is strategy. Calculated, merciless strategy. But what stuns the viewer isn't his brutality. It's the silence. The pride, bound by instinct and loyalty, hesitates. Grace is bleeding. Elijah can't help. The cubs are vulnerable. Then, breaking through the stillness, comes a roar. Not from Elijah, not from Grace, but from Maya, oldest of the lionesses, mother of 4, the only one who's seen this play out before, and lost everything. This time, she will not stay silent. And she is not alone. The roar didn't echo. It cut through the air. It came from Maya, the oldest lioness in the pride. Her voice was not the loudest, but it carried the weight of experience, loss, and resolve. Years ago, she had watched her own cubs fall to a rogue male. That memory had never left her, and it never would. But this time, she moved. She launched herself at Derek from the left, her body low, her claws unsheathed. It wasn't just a defensive act. It was a declaration. She would not stand by again. Almost instantly, another lioness, Amber, joined her. Then a third. Then a fourth. Within seconds, the rogue male was surrounded. A half circle of lionesses, tense and focused, their bodies shielding the cubs behind them. Small, trembling and confused, the cubs huddled together. They didn't understand the danger, but the lionesses did. and so did Derek. He roared, a sharp, aggressive blast, trying to intimidate them, maybe even hoping to divide them. But he underestimated something powerful. They had chosen unity over fear. This wasn't just instinct, it was choice. This was defiance. Pain. The clash came fast. Amber was the first to be wounded. She lunged, trying to rake her claws across Derek's face. But he twisted, locking onto her shoulder. The bite forced her back, and for a moment, she staggered. The viewer sees it all, not in graphic detail, but in her body language. The limp, the weight she can no longer bear on one side. She doesn't retreat. She regroups. From the other side, limping, still bleeding from the earlier attack, Grace drags herself back into the circle. Every step looks agonizing. But when she reaches the others, she takes her place in the line. Silent, resolute. No lioness moves. They hold, and behind them, the cubs whimper softly. The sound is small, almost lost in the tension, but it pierces the viewer. They don't know this is a battle for their lives. The line begins to sway. Derek, still powerful, tries to break through again. He lunges left, then right. He roars. He pushes. But they don't part. And then, the tall grass parts. A shape rises. Elijah. The Alpha. The Protector. The Fallen. He limps forward, each step labored. His flank is still torn from the buffalo, his breath shallow. But when he sees Grace, barely standing, and his cubs backed into the dust, something within him ignites. His gaze sharpens, his jaw tightens, and then he roars. Hope. It's not loud because of force, it's loud because of meaning. The lionesses pause. The air shifts. Even Derek hesitates. Elijah doesn't wait. He doesn't ask for backup. He doesn't need strength. He needs purpose. With every ounce of what remains in him, Elijah charges. The final clash is swift, fierce. The grass thrashes, dust swirls. The pride watches, breathless. Derek stumbles. He's shocked, not just by the attack, but by the rage in it. Elijah has nothing to prove. He has everything to protect. In a blur of movement, claws flash. Derek roars again. But this time, it's retreat. He breaks. He runs. The lionesses stand together, shoulders brushing, heads high. One by one, they raise their voices, not in victory, but in unity. The pride roars, not as individuals, but as one, a family, unbroken, unshaken, and alive. The sun was setting slowly, casting long shadows across the savannah. The battle was over. The land was quiet again. But peace had come with a cost. Elijah, the pride's protector, lay still beneath the golden light. His chest no longer rose. His breath was gone. But his body rested beside Grace, their paws touching, their heads gently tilted toward one another as if frozen in silent farewell. He had done what only a true leader could do. He had saved his cubs. He had saved his pride. Triumph. There was no celebration, no sound, only presence. One by one the lionesses gathered, not in panic, not in fear, but in reverence. They closed ranks, slowly forming a circle around the cubs, just as they had earlier that day. But this time, it wasn't defense. It was honor. The circle was unbroken. The message was unspoken, but powerful. These cubs will grow up. They will carry forward the bloodline of a lion who gave everything to protect them. No one moved away. No one looked back. They simply stood together. Some nuzzled Elijah's mane. Others brushed past Grace's flank. They licked their wounds, not in weakness, but in quiet recognition of survival. Then, a single, slow moment. The camera lens draws in, not toward the adult lions, not toward the fallen male, but toward the cubs. Snuggled deep into Maya's side, they slept soundly, curled together in warmth. Unaware of what had unfolded, unaware of what had been lost, unaware of what had been won. Inspiration. In the wild, survival often depends on strength, size, speed, power. But today proved something deeper. Today it wasn't strength that won, it was love. Not the love we often imagine, soft, quiet, tender, but something more ancient, more raw, love that defends, love that bleeds, love that refuses to yield. Nature is harsh. It is often unforgiving, but sometimes it is just. Sometimes it reminds us that even in the fiercest places on earth, compassion still leads, sacrifice still matters, and that the smallest lives, tucked beneath a mother's heartbeat, are often protected by the greatest acts of courage. That is what truly shocks us.